I am Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today, I have my special guest. He is the author of several books, and of course, award winning author and best selling author, too. No other than Mr. Matt Coyle.
Hello, Daniel. Thanks for having me.
Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Matt. And can you please introduce yourself?
Well, as stated, I'm Matt Coyle. I write the Rick Cahill crime series about a former cop who's now a private investigator. Got kind of a dark past in many ways. And in book 10, which is Odyssey's End, he's battling CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which is the also known as pro football disease, and trying to keep his family together. And that comes out November 14th.
Wow, congratulations! How does it feel that you are both award winning and best selling author?
Uh, um, it feels good. It feels good. There's always more ladders to climb, but feels real good. It took me 10 years to get published, so this is 20 years down the line, and I'm happy with the way things have gone. It's been a long, hard, but rewarding struggle.
Is it a pressure, Mr. Matt? Those tagline?
Yeah, there's absolutely. I don't write as fast as I'd like to. It always takes me a little longer than I think, but yeah, the timelines and also trying to reach my own level of where I think the book should be. There's always pressure.
Definitely. What age did you realize that you're good in writing?
Well, I guess probably when I was in, well, they call it middle school now, junior high, so that's probably around 14, somewhere around there.
Who are your favorite authors that influence you the most?
Well, of authors past, I'd say Raymond Chandler and Ross McDonald were big influences to me. I read them at a young age when I was a teenager. And contemporarily, probably Michael Connolly, Robert Grace, T. Jefferson Parker. Those would be influences, people that are very nice people to begin with, but people I respect and have kind of, in some ways, give me little pushes along the way, help me along the way a bit.
So, Mr. Matt, if you describe the writings of your favorite authors, what is it or what are they?
Describe the writing of my favorite authors.
Yes.
Well, it's all mystery. Like Michael Connolly writes the Harry Bosch and the Lincoln Lawyer series, and he's about as big as you could possibly get. Great writer, and also he's got two TV shows going right now, so he's a very busy man. And Robert Grace writes mostly a private eye series with Elvis Cole and Joe Pike. And T. Jefferson Parker writes, he does more standalones, but he writes also um, a private eye series with Cole Ford, I believe is his name. But he wrote a book that had a huge influence on me when I was just first starting writing, which was called, God, I'm blanking on the name now, Silent Joe, which won I think it was his first Edgar that he won, but it really showed me um, that you can write character-driven stories when you're writing mysteries.
So, what are your short term and long term goals in writing?
Well, short term, I want to finish. Well, short term, I want to get a nice launch with Odyssey's End, which comes out, as I said, in a few weeks. And also, I'm doing starting writing now, something completely different and not my Rick Cahill character. And I want to get forward a little more on that, get a little more forward momentum going. Long term, I would like to honestly would like to be able to earn a substantial living as a writer.
Definitely, indeed. So before we go on, Mr. Matt, I want to shout out to the people listening according to my ranking tops in the last 30 days. Because in Zambia, number 7 on Apple chart, Pakistan at number 20, Qatar at number 29, Oman at number 33, Slovenia at number 45, Chile at number 68, Nigeria at number 69, Egypt at 136, Zimbabwe at 137, Cambodia at 144, Singapore at 154, South Africa at 182, Norway at 183, Belgium at what 234, and a lot more. Thank you so much for supporting this podcast because this podcast is created to empower writers all over the world like Mr. Matt Coyle. So Mr. Matt, Odyssey and what behind the title of your book 10 series?
Well, like all the titles of the books I write, it comes organically. The title comes organically from the prose in the book. And since I write in first person, it usually comes out of Rick Cahill's head, but that's my protagonist. Um, the title, it could be an end to certain things in the series. It could be the end of people in the series, but I won't say more. We'll keep it a mystery.
Definitely. So how did you craft it? Odyssey's End.
Well, it's as mentioned, it's number 10 in the series, so um, there's a lot that goes before it. I'm always happy when reviewers say you can read as a standalone, and early reviews of this have said the same thing. But there is the series itself does there's a lot of carryover from book to book. So what's happened with Rick Cahill, as I mentioned, my protagonist, he's he in the beginning of this book, he and his family are he's separated from his wife and his child, his 20-month-old daughter, a daughter he thought he'd never be able to have after the death of his first wife. And he's because he's this disease he's got chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which is a brain trauma disease. It can lead to some nasty symptoms. In the last book, it um, this one of the symptoms is this rage, this uncontrollable rage. That is something that really happens in this disease, can happen in this disease. So that created a rift between he and his wife, among other things. Because he's a private investigator, he sometimes takes cases where he could get in danger, he'd be put in danger, and his wife doesn't like that. It's not the way she wants to raise their child. So they're separated. He's trying to keep his life together, his family together rather. But also, this disease generally means a shorter lifespan, and he's concerned about the long-term welfare of his daughter. And his whole idea now is he wants to be able to earn enough money for her to have, a little safety net in case something happens in life, which it generally does. So um, when an old nemesis wants to hire him to find someone for a lot of money. This is a person Rick doesn't trust. This is a person that Rick knows is kind of a bad guy, but they've also worked together reluctantly in the past. And he can't turn down the money. He knows you can't really trust this guy all the time with what he says, but it's a big chunk of money that would really go a long way in building that safety net for his daughter. So he takes the case, and may have been a mistake.
Very well said, Mr. Matt. So is this really the end of the series?
I'm gonna leave that to the last page of the book.
Sounds interesting. So can you describe the research process behind Odyssey's End?
Yeah, there's a little bit of cryptocurrency in it, which I don't know, I didn't know much about. And so there, I, you know, I'm on social media like almost everybody. So I put out a little note to some of my followers on social media about, does anybody have an in with sort of an expert in cryptocurrency? And a woman who's a friend of mine, she's a lawyer for a big agency up in the Bay Area, and she turned me on to one of her colleagues, and she gave me a lot of good information about it. So I got what I needed. I'm, I don't know that much more than I did before I started writing, but I knew enough to be able to link the things that I wanted to have in the story. And then with the chronic traumatic encephalopathy, I've talked to some doctors about that. Rick's brain disease. I've talked to doctors about that. This is the third book where Rick's had it. It's not something that's going to go away. So once he was diagnosed with it, I couldn't just let it pale in the background. So I've talked to some doctors on always online research, of course, but you try to, on the online research, you try to back it up with real human beings as much as possible. So online and talking to real doctors and experts. And it's amazing. I'll say this. In all the years I've been writing, and like I said, it took me 10 years to get published. And so this is my 10th book. And really, so it's about 20, a little over 20 years I've been writing Rick Cahill. I'm always amazed at how um, welcoming experts are to help writers. I've only been turned down one time, and it was about ranching, strangely enough. And I probably didn't present myself in a way that the guy could understand what I was trying to do. People are always, even people in the government, they may not want their names to be used, and they're not giving me any governmental secrets, but they're giving me their time. And it is really it's an amazing, very helpful thing that people are so willing to give the advice of about things they know.
Indeed. So, Mr. Matt, what challenges did you face writing Odyssey's End?
There's some personal challenges. Some things are going on in my personal life that made it difficult, and also my four-legged writing partner Angus, my dog. He passed away during the writing of it, and he would be in my office for the writing of each of my books. Angus was a part of it. He was there, and so that was a little rough. May not seem so, but not having them in there staring at me from underneath his desk. I have a desk. He had a desk. That made it a little different. But also dealing with potentially the end of the series. Someone, as I said, it took me 20 years to get published. I've been writing this one guy, Rick Cahill, in first person for 20 years. So he's really become kind of like a part of the family. He's been in my head for all this time. And to possibly say goodbye to him was a little difficult. And I wanted to put him in an area where he was alone and couldn't get any help from anybody. And I had to find that area. And luckily, one that made sense where he couldn't get cell phone service or Wi-Fi service, but it was a real place and not too remote. I actually found a place by accident. So that was fun, a challenge, but fun.
That'd be awesome. So, I learned that you wrote lots of books. How did you deal writer's block?
Yeah, I know. So it's funny. Some writers don't believe in writer's block, but I do. I know I get it sometimes. So what I try to do is I'm not an outliner. I don't do a lot of plotting. I have an inciting incident and I have an end target that I know I want to go, but the rest, I really write on because I've written this character for so long. He's got a lot of internal strife. He's got a lot of issues away from his job that I try to start with um, the major subplot, what emotionally is going on in Rick's life, or taking a case will make it more difficult. And I find the case, and then I find the inciting incident to get the ball rolling, and I see the end. But so I got to make stuff up every day. I don't really have a roadmap. I just have a target. So there are times when I'll be stumped, but even though I don't outline, I do, as the story progresses, I do know places I have to go in the story. So if I'm really stuck somewhere, usually I just try to um, blunt force through it. But if there are brute force through it, rather. But if I'm really stuck, I'll just skip ahead a little bit because I do write chronologically. I'll skip ahead a little bit to write a scene I know I'm going to have at some point, and I just want to be moving forward at all times. So if I'm stuck where I'm writing, I'll jump ahead and write a scene that I know has to be in the book, and it may change by the time I get there again. But I just keep moving forward, and then generally my problem that I've been stuck at will open up as I'm working on other things. But no, I can be stuck for a while and just kind of stare at the keyboard, stare at the monitor, and just try to push through it. But um, if I'm really stuck, I push ahead, and then things will open up eventually. And I'll go back and continue the story from where I need to.
What's your daily writing routine like?
I write. I get up every morning and I go and take a 2.5 mile walk, and then I generally have to do some reading where I'm reading for blurbs or reading for judging for awards. So I get some reading done, and then I'll write and for a few hours and take a break. Used to walk my dog Angus, but I don't do that anymore because he's not around. And then I'll go back to work. So it generally is a two, or sometimes as I'm getting further in the story and there's a deadline looming, 2 and 3 periods of writing. So it's not, I don't just sit down for 8 hours straight and bowl through. I'll do writing sessions throughout the day, but I don't take huge breaks in between. But I do like to get out, get some sun, walk around, recharge the brain and the body a little bit in between the sessions.
Interesting, Mr. Matt. So, how do you feel your personal experiences have shaped your writing?
It's a good question. I've had led a pretty normal, boring life. I was in sales for many years. I managed a restaurant for others. But I'm of a certain age where you've had a lot of personal experiences, and had some lost family members, and probably lost a little more than normal. And so, and one particular, someone young in our family, my extended family. So I take the real life emotions and then put them in a fictional storyline. Like I've never seen a friend die in front of me, thank God, but I have, of course, lost. I have, as I mentioned, lost people. So you take that real life emotion and you find a way to plug it into the situation you're writing about, and um, that's the way. When you can actually find that, you realize that you really, you've sunk your hooks into the story, and that's, to me, that's the essence of being a writer. Is writing about something you may not personally know about, um, and putting real emotion into it.
Yes. Can you share a memorable reader's feedback or interaction that had a significant impact on you?
Well, I don't think I don't think I could narrow it down to one, but I do get emails from readers and telling me, how much they like the books. They like Rick. They've, started from book one and continued all the way through. It touches my heart. At times it amazes me. When I started writing all those years ago, I thought, is it possible that I could at some point become some readers' favorite authors, or one of their favorite authors, where they'd actually, be waiting for when my next book was going to come out, and to actually have that in real life it's really rewarding. So in many ways, this job, this profession, there's not a huge economic rewards. There can be, hopefully everyone will get there, but there's so many other rewards that you get, and readers experiences, and just being able to talk to readers, because I do a lot of events, and when I do go to conferences, I take readers out to lunch or breakfast, and being able to talk to them, and as they share their feelings about my characters is a really cool, rewarding experience, and that the dream I had of that actually happening, has come to fruition, and it's really rewarding.
How do you handle criticism, both constructive and negative?
Well, I was in writers groups for almost probably 20 years. I haven't been in one in the last year or so. And so that's the good. Well, here's a good thing about my previous work experience is that I was in sales. So you are constantly getting no's in sales, but you're not selling yourself. I mean, in some ways you are selling yourself, but you're selling a product. You're selling your company's product, so you don't take it personally, although it can affect your income. You shouldn't be taking it personally. But so you're used to rejection. That's the good thing about having a sales experience when you get into this business, because there's so much rejection, especially early when you're trying to get an agent for one and trying to get published. Then after you get an agent, so there is constant rejection. So you learn how to deal with it. Um, and so that's one point. And then when you finally get published, yeah, you can get some negative reviews. And I happen to read pretty much all my reviews, even when I'm on even Goodreads, where you can. It's kind of infamous for getting some nasty reviews at times. But honestly, sometimes they just don't like it, and that's fair. Not everybody's going to like everything. Not everyone likes every genre. And sometimes when your book will go on sale uh, on an ebook will go on sale for a real cheap price, you get a lot of new readers, but some of them are just taking a chance for, they're going to spend $1.99 for a book, maybe genre they wouldn't normally write, to take a chance. And sometimes they just don't like it. They don't like the genre. They don't like violence and such. And so they don't like it, and that's fine. And I completely understand. But there's other times when you have someone that reads the genre and they don't like it, and I actually will look and see, and occasionally I will see some valid criticism. I go, you know what, I can understand why that didn't work for them. So I learned to, I try to grow from them, and then from the positive ones, yeah, I just, you go, wow. I'll tell you one thing about the positive ones is when they really, and you can read a review where they kind of really get what you were trying to say, not just that they like the book, but they understood what you were trying to say. That is really rewarding, and so those you kind of cherish and remember. So yes, there's the good and the bad, but I try to learn from the bad. Try not to take it personally, and I try to learn from them.
Yes, to strive to be excellent. So do you think that rejection make you better in the process?
Absolutely, all the rejections. That's another really good question. Absolutely. I it took me, okay. So I mentioned it took me 10 years to get it published, but that wasn't, you're not sending out. It took me probably 5 years to actually write a book I felt was legitimate to send to agents, and then there'd be rounds of sending out and rejections. And so, but with each after each queries I'd send out and the rejection would come in, I'd be revising that book. I continued to revise that book for years and years and years, and I was afraid I was going to be the one of those writers that just never got past the first book. And actually, I did start the second book before at one point, and thinking, well, this book just not is not it's being rejected by the market. It's fine. I'm moving on to something else. But then I got kind of a rejection, but there was some positive in it, and so I worked with my mentor Carolyn Wheat to rewrite the book, and it eventually did get published. But long story short, the benefit of all those years of rejection and revising, it made me become a better writer each time. I think each time you touch the book, you improve it. I mean, I could actually never turn in a book because I'd always be trying to improve it, but at some point you have to turn it in. But so I think that whatever level I have as a writer now, if I somehow gotten that first book published in an earlier draft than the one that actually was finally accepted, I don't think I'd be where I am today, because I think the writing would have started out at a lower level. Um, and so all those rejections, and the other thing is, it really helps you develop voice. Voice is that thing that's hard to describe, but when you read it, you kind of can. If a writer has developed a voice, you can feel it, you can read it. And so I think all those years of rejection also made me really develop a voice, made me um, move further away from the people I admired, and I was probably emulating without even knowing it, like Chandler and say McDonald, and then really developing my own distinctive voice. So yeah, all when you're going through it, it's terrible. It can be depressing. But now, as I look back, I'm thankful for all the rejections I got, and it doesn't seem that painful. It doesn't seem that long, but of course, there was probably close to 5 years of sending out, rejecting, before someone finally said yes.
What is the most rewarding aspect of being an author?
I think again it goes back to the readers talk readers that actually care about what you're doing. Getting a chance to meet them at events. My launch is coming up November 14th. I'll be at Warwick's and in La Jolla in San Diego, and we usually get a really good crowd there. And just honestly, just sitting and talking to readers and getting some feedback, that is my favorite thing. I really enjoy it. And I didn't think I'm kind of as a lot of writers, I'm kind of a lone wolf. A lot of writers maybe. But that aspect of talking to the public is not something I looked forward to, but now it's my favorite thing.
Definitely, plus signing the book itself. But before we go on, Mr. Matt, I'm inviting you to listen to my other podcast, Food 101, our third season, with Chef Alessandro, one of the best executive chefs in one of the best five-star restaurant in downtown Toronto. So please do listen to our latest episode. We talk about one of the expensive spices in the world, saffron, people saffron, and our books are out, not only one but 10 volumes, people. Food 101 Volume 1 Basic is all about our 100 episodes of our first season of Food 101. Available on Amazon and leading online bookstores worldwide. So, Mr. Matt, Odyssey's End, what is the best highlight?
I think the best highlights is strangely for me is I've had a couple early reviewers tell me that I really nailed the father-daughter relationship, and I'm not a parent, and I wish I was, but things happen in life, and now I'm too old. But so to me, that was a twofold compliment. One, that someone could actually think that I was a parent, and the other one being that not being a parent, I could actually nail it on the page. And so that's been really rewarding. It's a highlight for me. But also, I had an idea of when I started the book where I wanted the end of it to be, and I wanted Rick to be isolated up in kind of in some ways wilderness, not complete wilderness, but isolated up in the mountains and having to deal with a lot of bad guys. And that nailing it, I think I nailed it. Readers can maybe disagree. We'll see. But putting that scene to those scenes together with a lot of gunplay and as I think I did, nailing it was that's rewarding too. I actually that's how I wanted it to end, and that's how it did, and it was fun. I enjoyed that part.
Yeah, so do you think, Mr. Matt, that Odyssey's End is a good for a series on Netflix or
Oh hell yes,
Amazon Prime?
hell yes. I have a Hollywood. I have a Hollywood agent, and he's working hard, and nothing's happened yet. But yeah, actually, it's for one thing, it's 10 books, so that'll give you a nice chunk of material to work with. But yeah, absolutely. I think in with all the, of course, the strike's been going on, but with all the different streaming opportunities, there's different tastes for everyone that are out there. So I do think at some point that the Rick Cahill series will become a series, and I wait for that day. But yeah, I do. I really do think, if I was a fan of the genre, hopefully I would be saying the same thing after reading the series. But yes, in my mind, it absolutely has a spot on the small screen on TV. I absolutely see it there, and I mean, I've already got thoughts about it. Yes,
Crossing my fingers,
thank
Mr.
you.
Matt. And how about if they offered you a movie, instead of a series, movie, and then you condense in a motion picture? How did you do
Well,
it?
yeah, I mean, of course, I wouldn't turn it down. For a couple of reasons. One, business being, I actually think TV is the better home for it, but a movie, of course, I would not turn it down. But if I had a choice between the two, I would go with TV. I think you have a chance to develop the characters more fully, and I just think the most interesting things being done right now in visual art are still on TV. There's a lot of bad, as we all know. There's a lot of bad stuff on TV, but I still think there's a lot of really good stuff. And that's not necessarily network, but it's all the streaming and the pay per view, like say, Amazon or Max, whatever they call it, Prime. Um, so yeah, I think either one it would work. I wouldn't say no to either, but if I had a choice, I would go TV.
Definitely. So, Mr. Matt, if you want to go back and revise the book itself, which part of the book you want to revise?
I don't really know, but I will say this. Every time, generally, I'll do a little reading at the book signings, and so I try to I try to give good content, and I also don't want to read too long. So I'll be editing things in the book that for time purposes. It's generally the first chapter, but a lot of times as I'm doing that editing, I'm thinking, why don't you just edit this in the first place? You don't really need that. So I haven't done that yet
Yes.
with Odyssey's End, but there may be portions where I go, well, you know what, you could have been a little crisper on that. So like I said, and I've heard Robert Cray say this, that the editing never stops, and I agree completely. I mean, I think you could always be whittling on a book, but I'm pretty happy with it. It was a book that was difficult to write in many ways, and I questioned it a lot along the way. But actually, I'm really happy with the way it turned out.
Definitely. So, how do you feel about the current state of the publishing industry?
I haven't seen a whole lot of positive things coming out lately. I think it's I mean, it seems like every couple few days someone's sending me a something a article they read about the sad state of publishing. I think there are some positives in that. I think it's probably easier to get published now than it was when I was starting. I think even though with all the consolidation of the big houses, there's still small independent imprints popping up, or not imprints, but independent publishers popping up. And there's if you really don't want to go the traditional way, you can self-publish, but I think it's a very hard track to get readers to start that way. I think everybody's going to end up doing some form of self-publishing somewhere down the line, but I think until you build a traditional readership, it'll be hard to get traction. But it's hard to make money in the business. I've mentioned money a couple of times. I don't do it for the money. I do it because I was meant to do this. I found that out when I was 40 and I started doing it, that I was meant to be a writer. So when I do it, I don't specifically do it for the money, but it's nice to get paid. But it is a hard way to make money, to make a living at it. So and that seems to be getting more and more difficult as you go. But as I said, there's a lot of avenues, and plus there's, as you mentioned, there's TV, there's movies, so there's always a chance of getting picked up that way to supplement your income and build a readership.
Yes, definitely. So, what are your inspiring message for those aspiring writers out there?
It's one I have to be more attuned to myself. It's getting your rear end in the seat and writing. You have to write when it's hard, and it generally is hard every day. Write when it's easy, write when you don't want to. You got to force yourself to do it. And I find that some of the best writing sessions I have are when I sit down, I've got nothing to say, and I sit there and stare at the screen for a half hour, and I think, well, I could be reading now, I could be watching my favorite true crime on TV, I could be doing something else, but I'll stick it out a little while longer, and then finally something pushes through. And sometimes those are my best sessions where it's just, man, this was a grind, but all of a sudden the gates open and it goes up. So it's really putting the hours in. You have to put the hours in. It doesn't, for a lot of us, there's other people, writing's easy, but for a lot of us, it's a really hard exercise, and you got to fight through the pain and the boredom and the other things to do in your brain and write. And so I say, first of all, read the genre you want to write. That's very important, but force yourself to write. It sounds stupid, but that's the way to do it.
Very well said, Mr. Matt. But if you go back and give advice to yourself when you were first starting out as a writer, what would it be?
I would kind of be the same advice. I always knew I wanted to be a writer from a very early age, but I just wasn't doing it. But I do think there has to be critical mass in your life where you feel like you really have something to say. And I don't think maybe, I'm sure I could have started 10 years earlier. and I'd have a few more books under my belt. But I didn't have a something to say at that point. So I wish I would have started earlier. I don't know if it would have made a difference, but I'm sure I could have found some stories to talk about. But I would say maybe just be a little, if I would a little more, if disregarding the information I did, the suggestion I just said, be a little more efficient with the time. That's something I still have to work with. So be more focused specifically on what you're trying to say each day. That'll make you a little more productive.
Very well said, Mr. Matt. So, where can our listeners find more about you and your work?
Well, my website you can go directly to, which is mattcoilebooks.com. I'm on Facebook, Matt Coyle. This is the time of year when I talk about my writing. Generally, I used to have images of my dog on doing couch yoga. Um, but yeah, and I'm on Instagram, kind of. I'm not really on not really on Twitter, X. I'm on there, but Instagram, I'm still sort of. I am somewhat prolific on Facebook, but not so much on the others. But yes, please come to my website too and sign up for my newsletter. I send them one out about every 2 weeks, little things about writing and maybe some book recommendations. So yeah, and I love to hear, like I said earlier, I love to get feedback from readers.
People, let's support Mr. Matt Coyle because if you support him, more books to come. And listen notes, thank you for my latest listen score of 26 and belong to 10% popular show globally. Plus, Fit Spot, thank you for being on the number 7 best art book podcast. Need to be followed this 2023. So, Mr. Matt, can you invite our listeners to pre-order your Odysseys and
Absolutely. You can find it online. You can find it on, all the big names, Amazon, but also if you get on my website, you'll see some of the smaller indie stores. You can buy it too. They do a really good job.
Bodycon people? See you soon.